construction industry's present challenges and way forward, organized by the Construction Industry Sector-Based Standing Committee of the OPA, jointly with the Organization of Professional Associations. Construction Industry Sector Committee is one of the very active standing committees. Of the OPA with a very dynamic leadership. The committee has been deliberating on the issues the construction industry is facing at present due to the pandemic, and this is an extension to that activity. Also, this committee members provided many valuable inputs to the OPA task force that was set up to analyze and provide solutions to the construction industry issues at present due to COVID. OPA has already forwarded those recommendations to the relevant authorities. I believe the two eminent panelists of this webinar would shed more light to the thoughts that the OPA has already expressed on this subject few weeks back. On behalf of the OPA, I very warmly welcome the two erudite panelists, Dr. Rohan Karuna, President of the Ceylon Institute of Builders, and the Professor Srimal Abhiratna, Professor in Economics, Department of Economics, University of Colombo, and our own engineer Saliya Kaluwarachchi, the forum member and a member of the OPA Construction Sector Committee, who is playing the very important role of moderator today. Also, I welcome the General Secretary, President-elect, Treasurer, Chairman, and the members of this Construction Sector Committee. Last but not least, I very warmly welcome all the past presidents, forum members, and all of you ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the program. Over to architect Rohan Bandara. Rohan Bandara is a vice president of the OPA. He is the president-elect of the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects, and also the chairman of the Construction Industry Sector-Based Standing Committee of the OPA. Over to Architect Herat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Professional colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is yet another attempt made by the Construction Industry Sector Committee to address another important area. The main topic today is construction industry's present challenges and way forward. Construction sector is one of the very important sector in this country when we talk about the physical development. There's a very close relationship with the economy and this industry. You all can see when the economy is good, we can see a boom in construction industry. When the economy is bad, we can very clearly see a downfall of the construction industry. Statistics reveal that it serves more than 7% of our population directly, while contributing 7% to the GDP. This sector is responsible for 40% of carbon emissions and also created huge impact to the environment, natural and built, as well as human well-being. The uniqueness of this sector is that it is related with all the other sectors in this country. It could be production, supply, agriculture, hospitality, education, health, legal, management, or any other. Most importantly, it gives benefits to the entire cross-section of the society, irrespective of their social status. Ladies and gentlemen, we have invited two eminent personalities for this seminar, namely Professor Sirimal Aberatna and Dr. Rohan Karuna. Professor Sirimal will touch the global scenario, and Professor Rohan Karunaratne will touch the local scenario. I would like to invite Chartered Engineer, OPA Forum member, and my committee member, Engineer Saliye Kalwarachi, to introduce our speakers today and to start the balanced proceeding of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Sectoral Chairman Rohana and President of OPA, Engineer Shanta. I would also take a little time to outline the objective or the intentions of this event today, which we really planned well ahead in the latter part of last year, but we were unable to proceed due to obvious reasons, the constraints brought in by the current health authorities. Now, what our intention was to get all the stakeholders of the construction industry into a forum where we would look at the industry ourselves and see what part of it need to be attended by the external resources like the state or international investment, etc., and what part of it need to be attended by ourselves who are in the construction industry. So as a professional who has been in this for a substantial period, what we thought was not to have long seminars, but to bring in a resource with a stakeholder of the industry and have kind of a dual presentation and a dialogue. And our final intention was to continue with about 3 to 4 of these, like bringing in the designers, project planners, project managers, and other stakeholders like property developers and also the large-scale builders. But unfortunately, the time factor, which got constrained due to the health issues, may not allow us to continue this dialogue to a great extent. But today we have tried to create a scenario of the global and local economic scenario in relation to construction industry, which is the macro picture, and also the construction industry immediate issues, which is the micro picture. So for the macro picture, we have one of the most eminent personalities in the country who's fit to present this subject on global and local economies in relation to construction industry. We have Professor Sirimal Abhiratna, Professor in Economics in the University of Colombo, who also wears the parallel hat of being the current chairman of the Monetary Policy Consultative Committee of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Academically, Professor Abhiratna holds a PhD from the University of Amsterdam, and he has a master's and MPhil degrees from International Institute of Social Studies in Hague. And quite obviously, his bachelor's degrees from the University of Colombo itself. Professor Abhiratna has been a visiting fellow at universities in Japan, Vietnam, Australia, and Italy, and also has served as a consultant to many international organizations and government agencies. She has also provided consultancy to corporate sector organizations in Sri Lanka. And Professor Abhiratna is a member of the Economic Freedom Network, Free Thinker, EFN Asia. To add to his credits, he has many research papers, articles, as well as other publications in economics. Today, Professor Sirimal Abhiratna is going to speak or deliver his presentation on global and local economy in relation to construction industry. May I take pleasure in inviting Professor Sirimal Abhiratna to make your presentation. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Chairman. As you mentioned rightly, my presentation, my talk is about global economy, local economy, the macro picture, and also in relation to the construction industry. So the chairman of the OPA, chairman of the construction sector committee, as well as all the membership of the attending this seminar, and dear ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege for me to speak here from an economic point of view. I hope that everyone can hear me well. So I have organized, I think about 30 minutes to speak on this subject. I am going to organize my talk and the economy. Second part is about the global economy, the current status of the global economy. Third part is, in that context, the current status of the Sri Lankan economy. And then I will conclude with that. Mr. Rohan Karuna also in his speech mentioned about the importance of the construction industry and its contribution to GDP. I will take what he said, that the construction industry contributes about 7% of its output, value added, to our GDP. And in fact, last year, we all know that the GDP contracted in this country as elsewhere in the world because of the pandemic by 3.6%. And the largest contraction has also been in the construction industry, over 13%. Decline in the negative growth of the construction industry. So it's important for the economy. It's important to run the economy as well as to maintain its higher growth rate as always we expect to have. Now, whatever we do from our own sphere of expertise, whether it is related to agriculture or industry or service sectors, whichever the area that we are working in, we all are at the end of the day contributing to our economy. So our GDP is constituted by everything that we do. Our income is generated from our contributions. An important thing. So construction industry is also an important component of our GDP. In economics, we divide production sectors into two groups. Well, there are many ways to classify these production sectors. This is one way of classification, which is important for our talk right now. One is called non-tradable and non-tradable. Tradable sectors and non-tradable sectors. Why is it important? Because non-tradable sectors, construction industry is falling under that category, non-tradable. The terms are self-explanatory, but what it means is actually they are not traded across the borders of a country. But anyway, with technological developments, these definitions might change. These tradable, non-tradable classification, you can't draw a straight line dividing the two sectors, but to a large extent, it can be. So the construction industry fall under the category non-tradable. Non-tradable means its focus is largely the domestic economy. Its output is consumed largely by the domestic economy. Tradable is the sector of which the output can be traded internationally. Even though part of the output is here within the domestic economy, but in principle, tradable sector consists of all the sectors of which the output can be exported to the rest of the world. Now, why these two sectors are important? Because the tradable sector cannot survive without non-tradable sector. And vice versa. The non-tradable sector cannot expand without the expansion of the tradable sector. So that whatever we produce for the global market, for the world economy, whether it is a commodity or a service, construction sector and other non-tradable sectors play a major role. Now, what has happened here is, let me give you a very interesting case study. Remember, after the end of the war, that was in 2009. And if you look at our GDP growth rate in 2010, 11, and 12, these 3 years, you will find very high growth rate. 8%, 9%, 10%, and probably in 2011, it is more than 10%. High growth rate. But it did not last long. And after that, gradually over the last 7-8 years, it has fallen to very small levels and then finally hit by the corona pandemic issue, we had a negative growth rate last year. But even without corona, we have been falling in terms of our growth rate. What is the reason? The reason is that we cannot sustain this link between the tradable and the non-tradable sector. Why do I say that? Because after the end of the war, one non-tradable sector that expanded rapidly during this period was the construction and reconstruction industry. Both are coming under construction. Even after that, it is the construction industry. I include all these highway construction, the seaports, the airports, and stadiums, and all these things. I include them. Not only the war-torn areas, the reconstruction sectors, but in other areas also. But that construction industry, that non-tradable sector, should support the expansion of the tradable sector, which did not happen. So that's why, in fact, over the last 10, 12 years, our tradable sector has been performing very poorly. Our export sector has not grown as the way that it should have grown. You can also extend our analysis to for 20 years, starting from early 2000s, and you can see, if you do that analysis, our export growth has been slowing down continuously and steadily, which means the link between the tradable and non-tradable sectors became very weak. And we also borrowed money and we spent money and we did construction industry, but did not support the tradable sector. Of course, tradable sector requires the construction industry, requires the non-tradable sector as a major input, without which tradable sector cannot expand too. But we had the non-tradable sector expansion, on which we didn't have the required tradable sector expansion, for which the price that we had to pay was quite high. So that's why I would say that always when I speak about the economic problems that we have encountered, is not because of the corona pandemic issue. Our problem was much deeper than that. I hope you got the point that I wanted to highlight. Construction industry is an important component of a GDP, but if GDP is not growing in line with construction industry, we have to be careful. Global economy. Global economy moves through cycles, and this economic cycles, so business cycles, this is a topic in economics that has been studied by economists for over 200 years. 200 years. Cyclical way of the world economy. It may not be the entire world, maybe regions. In fact, if you look at about 200 years ago, the world economic power was in England, and it shifted to the United States after that, early 19th century, early 20th century. And then it has been shifting towards Asia in the 21st century, or late 20th century and 21st century. All are related to the business cycles. So in another 10 years' time, another 20 years' time, the economic landscaping of the world might be very different. And that's why many people say that it is the century of Asia. Yes, true. Because there is a shift in production process from advanced countries, from the Western countries and from the United States towards Asian countries. And to explain that part, actually, this is not the right time, and I need quite some time to explain why it is happening and how it is happening and how do we know about it and all these things. But one thing that we need to understand, that it is shifting from region to region and it is moving with cycles. There should be economic recessions and economic expansion, bust and booms. So right now, starting from the 2008 and 9, that the United States financial crisis, from that point onward, the world economy has been in the bottom of that cycle, which we call crisis. In fact, the world never recovered from the world economic crisis that happened about 10, 11 years ago. It never recovered. And after that, it was before the recovery took place and the world economy was hit again by this current pandemic. So if we examine the world capital flows in the world over the last 20, 30 years, we would see that the capital, which is a very important component of making up our growth rates, it has been shifting from advanced countries, from rich countries towards developing countries. In fact, towards Asia, for that matter. That's what we call foreign investment, foreign direct investment. The investment that were already located in the Western European countries, in Japan, in the United States, they were shifting away from those rich countries towards Asia. In fact, there has been an exponential growth of these capital outflow from advanced countries, which actually made the recession faster, because when investment located in those countries, when they are moving away, those countries' growth rates slow down. So we can prove that those countries' growth rates slow down, and we can say that American investment, they took part of their investment from the United States and they got relocated in Asian countries, China and other Asian countries. That has been happening over the years. And in fact, about 20 years ago, if you look at the world economy, there has been capital movements, but it has been the business of rich countries. They moved away from rich countries and they went into rich countries. Developing countries didn't have much to do with that. In fact, developing countries got about 20 to 25% of that capital flows. Most part of the capital flows, it was a business of the rich countries, flowing out of rich countries and flowing into rich countries. But that changed. If you look at this century, more than half of that capital, which has grown exponentially over the last 20, 30 years, about 50%, 60% of that now moving from rich countries to developing countries, and that is Asian countries, which is one important underlying factor of that economic recession in the Western countries. In fact, when there is a recession, investment move out. When the investment move out, the recession becomes even faster. At the end of the day, we will see slowdown in growth rates in those countries. So they adopted a lot of other strategies to maintain their growth rates, and they could maintain it only 1%, 2%, maximum 3% growth rate in those countries. They could not come back to 5%, 6% growth rates that they experienced earlier. So the production shift from advanced countries to Asian countries. Now, when the world economy was hit by the pandemic, they had a double punch to the global economy. But because of the now the vaccination program is taking place all over the world, and some countries are adopting various strategies, and China is, I guess, #1 to contain the spread of the pandemic. And with all these things in place right now, the next couple of years, we would see the recovery of the world economy. So when the recovery takes place, it is accompanied by many other macroeconomic changes, and we have to anticipate those changes also. Now the local economy. The local economy, I mentioned one important factor, and that factor has been the underlying main reason for large part of the problems that we are facing today, including the foreign debt problem. Because our export growth, and I mentioned that tradable sector expansion did not take place at the rate that it should have happened. In fact, about 15, 20 years ago, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka had the same level of exports. And today, Bangladesh is still poorer than Sri Lanka according to per capita income, but today Bangladesh exports 3 times higher than the Sri Lankan exports, which is about $11 billion worth exports. Vietnam is a wonderful and surprising rise in terms of its export growth. About 25 years ago, in the mid-1990s, our exports were $5 billion, and Vietnamese exports were also $5 billion. Today, as I said, we have little more than double our exports to 11 billion, anyway less than 12 billion. But Vietnam exports today means actually before the COVID year, that is 2019, 250 billion compared to our 11 billion. 25 years ago, we were at the same level. So you can see how slow we have been in terms of our tradable expansion. But we have borrowed money, and then we invested in construction and reconstruction. I'm not talking about the private investment in construction industry. I'm talking about the public investment. and which has not supported to economic growth. And economic growth has been slowing down, but the construction industry continues, not for too long. These two things should go together. Even the private investment in construction industry should go in line with economic growth. Therefore, both tradable and non-tradable sectors should support economic growth, going hand in hand, without which it may not be sustained. Now, the economy was hit by the corona issue, and then things which were aggravating over the years and decades came to a very critical point, and we all know that, and every day we get new information about all these problems that the country is having in terms of our debt issue, number one, and then foreign reserve issues and all these things. Why? Because our tradable sector expansion was not at the rate that we wanted to have. Now, recovery means for Sri Lanka is not going back to pre-corona period. Although it may be the case for many other countries in our neighborhood, for Sri Lanka, it is not the case. Now, I was talking about Bangladesh, and Bangladesh has a couple of weeks ago, we have been talking a lot of things about Bangladesh, and Bangladesh foreign reserve position is $45 billion, and 45 billion, they came to that point now, having 35 billion last year, only within 12 months period. And our foreign reserve position at the central bank, now we say it is only 3 billion, less than 3 billion, which is not a result of the corona issue, which is a result of much deeper economic problems that we didn't address for a long time, which means recovery from corona problem within the next 1 or 2 years' time is not going back to the pre-corona times. Recovery requires going beyond that point. That means we need to constitute our export growth. We need to put it back on track. In fact, I don't think we ever did that in full scale. Definitely not during the last 20 years, but we need to put it back on track, without which we cannot find answers to all the burning problems that we are having today, and including construction industry. Now, when we say this one, at the beginning, I said the link between the two, so that if we want to achieve 5% or 8% or 10% growth rate within the coming years, and that will also sustain non-tradable sector, which provides valuable inputs to the tradable sector. That is the unbreakable link between the two. So even the construction industry remains heavily dependent on our overall economic performance. Thank you so much. I got only 45 minutes. In fact, less than 45 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Over to you, Mr. Salih.
Thank you, Professor Abhiratna. I think your presentation was a huge eye-opener to the industry, an area where we have not been physically or practically really being exposed as construction professionals or even as engineering professionals or in any other professional in the field of construction. So as it was, I don't think it was mentioned, but we intend to find a suitable means of publication of these proceedings today. And we will certainly make use of your presentation to, what do I say, educate the policymakers as to what path if they really need to take, if they need growth, not only pumping money into construction. Your tradable and non-tradable concept is something, in fact, I must genuinely admit, is totally new to me as an engineer, though we also learned a little bit of economics. This approach was never heard or never taught to us. So thank you once again for being a real, I would say, educator to this forum, which we hope to carry a little further if the situation permits. What I mean by situation is the current pandemic situation.
Thank you. Thank you for the compliments.
I would now move to the presentation by Dr. Rohan Karuna, who is basically here by virtue of the fact that he is also the president of the Ceylon Institute of Builders. Nevertheless, Dr. Rohan has number of hats to wear. He is also a past president of the National Construction Association, and he is currently the president of Master Builders International and South Asian Lead Construction Association. Apart from being the chairman of his own construction company, AKK Engineers. Dr. Rohan's construction experience, I would say, only forms one leg of his status. The other legs being finance and leisure, mainly. He's also chairman of Apico Finance and Associate Motor Finance, and also a director of the Hatton National Bank. He has also invested in his capacity as in the leisure sector with a number of holiday resorts. So, in addition, I must also mention that Dr. Rohan's contribution to the state or the authorities, I would say, goes in the capacity of advisor to Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, Export Development Board, and Central Environment Authority. Unfortunately, we have had a restriction on time where Dr. Rohan was doubtful of being here to make the presentation. Therefore, his presentation would be a recorded presentation, but he has promised that he would be available at the end of the session to take on any questions where I believe he has I just rang him and he has just reached home, and he has also joined the forum for in the session, and he will be listening to any question that will be posed later. Simultaneously, questions to Professor Sirimala Beratna also will be after the presentation of Dr. Rohan Karuna. I will now request the technical staff to commence playing the recorded presentation of Dr. Rohan Karuna.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank OPA for organizing this timely webinar. I should thank architect Rohan Herath and engineer Saliye Kaluarachi for inviting me to this important webinar. Thank you. Starting with the construction, the magnitude of our industry. we all know around 1 million direct and indirect people are working in our industry. We contribute 7 to 9% to the GDP. And also our turnover is around 600 billion to 900 billion these days. So government's target is to reach this GDP to 10% within next 2 years. So what they have done for this is they have done some work worth of 5,000 billion worth of work to be done during next 5 years. So we have 4 years left and we may have 4,000 billion worth of work to do. So who is the people, the team is going to do this work? First, let me tell you the future projects. What kind of project the government had been planned. They have planned for 100,000 kilometer road network, 10,000 into 3 highways and expressways, 10,000 bridges, 500,000 water supply to the householders, construction of 100,000 houses, then again the massive projects like Port City, Bandaranaike International Airport, hospitals, schools, parks, sports complexes, irrigation projects, etc. We got to see who are the major players in this game. We have over 1,500 registered architects in our country. So they should definitely get involved in this project. And also over 17,000 engineers and the consultants also should get involved in these projects. We have around 1,000 quantity surveyors and we have 3,800 registered contractors with SEDA and 1,200 non-registered contractors. So around 5,000 contractors we have. Other than these major players, there are so many others are getting involved. For example, under architects, there are draftsmen, AutoCAD draftsmen, beam specialists, quantity surveyors, all these land surveyors, all these people will get involved. Then indirectly, all these firms employ accountants, health and safety guys, and also manufacturers. The manufacturers has big role to play. Material suppliers, importers, hardware people, and our large supply chain. Our supply chain is one of the massive supply chains in this country because it starts from the sand suppliers, brick suppliers, lime, metal, cement block work is one of the largest supply chains in our country. Also, we have now around 650 to 700,000 workforce in the industry, but we have to increase this to 850,000 to reach these targets, achieve these targets. Also, we are working with all the other related industries like hospital industry, hotels, schools, universities, vocational training centers, RDA and PRDA, irrigation department, electricity board, water supply department. We do all the, we are working with all these people in next 4 years to reach these 400 billion worth of work. The mix of the contractors and the value work is very different here, because we have around 30 to 37 major and specialist contractors in our country. They grab 40% of the share. And also 150 numbers of this, only 150 numbers of large contractors will grab 35% of the workload. Small and medium contractors, we have around 4,000 people, will grab only 25% of the work. In that case, supposing say we are doing 1,000 billion worth of work, 400 billion will take by only 30 people. 350 billion will take by 150 people, and more than 4,000 people will take around 200 to 250 billion worth of work. Let me tell you how important our SME sector is. in our country, the 75% of the companies are SMEs, and they employ 45% of the people. That means 45% of employment is given by the SME sector, and they are the backbone of the economy. If you take the construction sector, there are 4,000 contractors are there as small and medium sector contractors. Their turnover is around 200 to 250 billion, sustainable source of employment. But only problem is their failure rate is around 30 to 40%. So the sustainability is a question. So what are the issues, problems and downturns of our industry? Right. As we all know, when this government come to power, we had 251 billion debts. Construction sector debts were 251 billion. So at that time, all the contractors are really suffering. Our bank ODs have become a massive problem for everybody. Interest rates have gone up. But somehow the government support us with the pressure from the industry. They support us to settle these. About 90% of these 251 billion have been settled now. So that was a big relief to our contractors. And also the moratorium facility, moratorium loans are being given into the construction sector. I think CIOB also has to take a credit for this. We very hardly work on this to get the moratorium facility to the construction sector. Somehow we got that also. And also next week you will see we are again asking another 6-month extension on repayments. I think government will do that also. Right. But what are the issues and problems and downturns of the industry now? Now we see actually we had lack of work the first year. And 2019 and first quarter of the 2020, we had very little work in the industry. So therefore, people start quoting very low prices, 20%, 15% lower than the engineering estimate they have been quoted. We have noticed some contractors have taken 4-5 projects of this nature, and now we heard they are in great trouble. And we don't see they are coming up for next tenders. So now fortunately there are some work in the country. I think about 60-65% contractors are engaged. But where the architects and the consultants are concerned, they complain that still they don't have much work. The reason for this, number one is most of the work being put it down is like road work, irrigation work, water supply projects and electricity. Electrical project. So you don't need architects for this kind of work. So therefore the major portion of the work they don't get it. And also the building works, large quantities are being given into the universities and the government institution. So how about these 1,500 chartered architects the entrepreneurs should do? So this is one of the massive complaints from them. I think government should very seriously think about this matter. But there are very efficient, highly qualified, chartered architects are around in the country. They can do wonderful jobs. But whole lot of billions and billions worth of work is being given it to the universities and the government institution. We feel this is very unfair. So the government should do a fair distribution of work among the architects and consultants also of these projects. The contractors also had this problem. I think some contractors grab a whole bunch of work because in our country the subcontracting system is very poor. So therefore, if a large contractor grabs a large job, it doesn't come down to the small and medium sector contractor. In other countries, there are all the subcontracting systems. There are bricklayers, there are plastering people, tiling, landscaping people, electrical contractors, the plumbers, water supply and wastewater doing by somebody else, external sewer, interior work, all these are doing in those big companies. So I feel this is very unfair. We should start better subcontracting system in this country. Then even the large portion of work we don't mind giving it to the big contractor, because it come down to the small and medium sector too. Nowadays, the biggest issue is the payment delays. Even some projects, they have their funds, they have their own fund, but the thing is, the certifying process is too long. It has to go to about 6 to 7 people. The bureaucracy is there. Some people are keeping the bills for about 2-3 weeks on their table, and they don't care about the CEDA timeline given, 21 days plus 14 days, they don't care at all. So therefore the bills are getting delayed by about 3-4 months. So this cannot be bared by a contractor due to now the prices are very high, the labor charges are very high, and you don't get credit for materials now these days. You have to pay cash and get the material. So the bank interests are going up. So if we don't get bill-to-bill payments, it's very difficult to complete a project on time. So therefore, the delay, we should definitely avoid this delay payments. Not only for contractors, even for consultants, because they have a large staff. Audit firms, they have their staff to look after. So therefore, everybody is suffering because of these payment delays. Then the payment, the certifying of the bills are being stopped due to extra works, due to wrong BOQ. The BOQ and the work to be done at the site is two different things. But then to match those things will take months and months. Change of work and wrong BOQs, and those things will delay the approving process. So from the day one, we should think about all those things. We have to fine tune the project from the day one to pay the contractor bill by bill, so the projects will go very smoothly, and no one will suffer. But now some contractors cannot pay for their staff, pay for their laborers. Therefore this thing come to the downstream. Even the poorest laborer will suffer without salaries at end of the month. So therefore delay payments have become one of the major issues nowadays. So I have been talking about the unfair distribution of work. Some people are grabbing too much of work, and some government institutions are even being given massive load of work which they can't handle. Unrealistic cost estimates are being done by the engineers from the government side engineer, because there are some examples. Most of the tenders these days, the contractors are quoting about 20% high than the engineering estimate. Why? The engineering estimates are wrong, because they don't know the new prices of the material, new labor wages. So these things has to be rectified. And the time extension, the LD, because of the COVID situation, because of the delayed payment, because of the lack of material in the country, some projects are getting delayed. It's nobody's fault. But the time extensions are not given, LDs have been deducted, and the contractors are in massive, they are in big trouble. Bank interest is still, comparing with the other countries, our interest rates are high. Therefore, if we don't get the payments in time, we have to pay a large amount of bank interest money to the banks, and contractors are really suffering because of this. So how can we support and improve this? How can we support the industry? I think number one, regular payment should come within 14 days plus 20. I mean, at least every 30 days the payment should come. We should have a rolling payment system in our industry. Some contractors should be bailed out from their liquidated damages and the time extensions to be given to complete those projects, and we have to bail them out, And also we have to bear there some contractors, I know, because I am not only an engineer, I am a banker too. So I know the situation of some of the large construction companies with the bank. So we have to sort this out with the banks and bail them out from their situation from the banks. The fair distribution of work, especially to the architects and consultants, we should discuss a way forward on this. Our contractors always complain about the retention money and the performance bond percentages. They always recommend that we should retain around 1%, not 5%. And the bonds, performance bond also to be reduced to 1 point. These are the requests from the industry. Also, we should educate our SME sector on health and safety, welfare, lean management and green construction too. In future, we should definitely turn into these areas. To bring the cost down, we should definitely use the lean construction management system, and we should, my opinion is to have only the green buildings in our country. All the contractors and all the sites, even the architects, consultants and contractors should train their people. The training is one of the very important areas in our country which we are not doing. So we have to think about training very seriously. At least every and each site we should train some people according to the size of the project. Downgrading of contractors, yes and no. Yes, we know some contractors, how much you have, the consultant help, the client help, the banks help, he is not performing. So these type of contractors, we know that everybody tell us, they complain, we get also some letters. Yeah, there should be either we should downgrade them and there should be some kind of punishment. But other than that, we should help everybody, all the sector, the client, consultant, all should help these people not to be downgraded and blacklisted. They should pay them on time to do their work. New entries to the industry is another big risk now. Everybody see contractors are driving luxury vehicles, so they think, my God, this construction business is a very good business. But they don't know the bank situation of those contractors. So therefore, new entry should be very careful. They should study the industry very well before they come into this industry. I was talking about the proper subcontracting system should be implemented in this country. This is very, very, very essential. We don't mind all these 10 billion, 15 billion, 25 billion work to be given into major contractors. But it should come down the lane. They should give those specialized fields to the small and medium sector contractor. They should use all those things. They should not grab everything by themselves. So this is one of the things we should introduce into our major contractors. We have noticed that the CEDA documents have been changed by so many consultants. So this should, I think CEDA also issued some notices, paper advertisements were there not to change any of their documents, but still it's happening. We should definitely we should stop this. Unusual price hike in the industry these days. Everybody, all the contractors will be in trouble because there are no material. Even if the material is available, the prices are double. So this situation cannot be continued, so government should intervene, and we have to have some system of, because we don't know how to quote for a job. The one of the bathroom fitting set today when we are quoting is 25,000, when we trying to fix it up it's 50,000. Steel, structural steel, double the price now. So therefore we should have a proper system of this price, maintaining the prices in construction materials. Price escalation for these electronic items like fixing of escalators and lifts and all. Now these days most of the contractors are in trouble. They can't complete their project. There are no lifts, no escalators are available in the country. So at any amount they would like to pay and finish this off, but still there are no materials available, no items are available in this country, and the prices are also double. So this kind of, I think this kind of situation, the clients or consultants should fair. They have to be fair, and they should support the contractors to buy these items or find these items or to pay them extra for them to buy these items and fix it out. Design and build projects. Gentlemen, there are some good news and bad news. I know some consultants don't like this design and build, but I have seen some projects are doing very well. The reason, the contractor should hire the qualified architect, qualified consultant, qualified structural engineer, qualified quantity surveyors to this project. They should, whole team should get together and do this project. In that kind of projects are doing very well. I have noticed the system is very good. But again, if the contractor trying to be greedy and if they're trying to hire non-qualified people and use in-house staff to do that, those projects are not properly going ahead. So we have to be very careful in this design and build project. Is good in one way and is bad in the other way. So we have to balance these things. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the big picture of these 4,000 billion worth of work in next 4 years. All the architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, consultants, contractors should get together and take this challenge, and also mainly our suppliers, the cement, steel, roofing guys, aluminium, hardware people, retailers, bricks, sand and metal suppliers, carpentry shops, manufacturers, importers, skilled and non-skilled workers. We should have a massive team. We should get together directly for this project, and also indirectly, as I told you, the accountants, health and safety sector people, food chains, education sector to train the people, all should get together to do this, to take this challenge. All the other, developing countries, when the economy is down, they dump money into the construction industry because then they know this money will go down to the stream and the poorest laborer will get benefit out of this money. So that is one of the good system this government is trying to do. But as we were discussing, the payments on time and the projects, what we need to be done in the country. There are a lot of, some projects are being done in some rural areas, big sports complexes, and those are idling now. No one is using that. Okay. Now we should not do those kind of projects. We have to only do the necessary projects in our country. So we are expecting the foreign direct investments in the construction industry. So that is why the construction industry is so important to sort out our dollar problem. The port city, we are expecting a lot of FDIs, the BIA, highways, water supply schemes, irrigation schemes. A lot of new hotels are coming up with the FDI's funds. So this is one of the industries where we can bring in dollars to the country. And also, as I said, nationally important projects to be done in this country without wasting the money. Education and training is also very important areas of our industry. The final product should be a quality of the product, timely delivered product, cost-effective product, build only what we need, and improve the technology. R&D, research and development, to be done in every and each project. We are very weak on that side. So the new technology to be introduced in our sector. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Having come to the end of the presentation by Dr. Rohan Karuna, I think it was a very, I would say, precise or very comprehensive picture of the micro sector. we have now moved away from some of the concepts, or rather, although there are conflicts in the opinions expressed by Professor Abhiratna and Dr. Karunaratna with regards to the future of the construction industry, the two sides need to be looked at by the industry in a compatible manner, because Professor Abhiratna's views should really be taken very seriously, not by the construction industry, by the policymakers of the country. Instead of dumping money into construction, whether they should take a very serious look at how the growth should really be managed. Nevertheless, I think the forum thanks Dr. Rohan Karuna as much as Professor Abhiratna for their presentations. And I would like to open the floor now for any questions or clarifications that any member should have. You may please unmute your microphone. You can do it yourself, and then present the question. And if you need a specifically answer from either of the participants or from both, please say so. And let us see how much time we can spend to it, because we have planned to wind up the session by 8 o'clock, but that leaves us more than 40 minutes. So please, over to all the participants, and may I also kindly request Professor Abhiratna and Dr. Rohan Karuna to come online to respond to these questions.
Ask question. Engineer Sali Kalwarachi, I am Sarat Gamini. May I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can be the first one. Okay.
Yeah, right. Okay. Very interesting presentation. Thank you for presentation. I would like to ask simple question. I am engineer, so I don't know much about this economical aspect. But from Professor Seema Abhiratna, you have explained it, that there's a link between tradable industry product outcome and the consumable. That means within the country. Is that due to, what is the link? Is that tradable output industry, we will get some foreign exchange? Is that the reason that you say that, you know, there is a always both should go up simultaneously?
Yeah, thank you. And there is also another question. I hope I can start answering, right? Mr. Sali, Mr. Kalwarachi?
Yes, yes.
There is another question actually in the chat box, and I will take up that also secondly. And the two sectors I mentioned, tradable and non-tradable. Tradable and non-tradable. Now, take it in this way. A building in Colombo that we see here is taken by companies who do business, and that business is somehow connected to the global market. Okay, if it is a service industry, if they are occupied in the building, and they will be servicing certain things, maybe selling airline tickets or handling international finance, insurance, or banking, or whichever the way. If it is a manufacturing industry, they might be doing producing goods to sell it in the global market. If it is related to tourism industry, they might be doing a lot of activities related to tourism. So you can see all these activities that I mentioned subsequently, they are tradable activities, and they should be located in the building that was constructed in the construction industry. So those without those even if somebody purchase a condominium apartment and then live there, that person either directly or indirectly related to what I mentioned, that person should have been earning money, and that earnings should be directly linked to the global market, because otherwise there will be a limit to that progress. So which means now the construction industry provides their output as an input to the tradable sector. You can take airport also, Mattala Airport, Hambantota Seaport, and any other construction activities, mega size construction activities that we have carried out in this country, they all are related to the global market, providing supplying either good or a service. So what has happened is over the last many years, this link has become weaker. So I hope the link is clear. And if you take all the construction activities that are taking place in this country, they are somehow related to the production activities that are linked to the global market. Why do I say global market? You might have a second question. Why not domestic market? Good question. Let me take a couple of seconds to answer that as well. We all know that Sri Lanka is a small country with 21 million people. And our boundaries do not bring us a big market. And it has been a small market even for China with 1.5 billion people. I don't think we have anything to say about Sri Lanka with 21 million people. It has been a small market. Domestic market is too small even for China. It is too small even for India. So that I don't think we have anything to talk about Sri Lanka. Now, naturally, there may be small countries geographically or in terms of population, right? There may be. Singapore is a small country, Dubai is a small location. But why that smallness does not affect their economic activity? Because their market is global, even though their location is small. That is the principle that we need to adopt even for Sri Lanka to avoid our smallness, the constraints imposed by our small geographical size of our country. We have to be global. So that's why otherwise our economic activities do not grow beyond the boundaries of our small market. If they have to grow, they have to look for the global market. There's a question in the chat box. I want to answer that. In fact, I also mentioned to Mr. Rohan Karuna that I have to leave at 7:30, so that I will take up economic questions first. This question is, what do I suggest to bridge the gap between tradable and non-tradable sector? So now, right now, the problem here we have is our tradable sector is not expanding as the way that we want. Why is that? It is because we are talking about, if we are talking about exports, okay, exports, and I gave you some figures, how small we are in terms of export expansion. And we need to ask our investors, not only Sri Lankan investors, but even global investors. I mentioned in my speech, there has been an exponential growth of capital outflows in the global scale over the last 20, 25 years. Exponential growth. In fact, about 25 years ago, the world capital outflow was about $200, $300 billion. If you look at it for the last 10 years, the average has been $1.5 trillion. So you can imagine what an exponential growth of capital from the rich countries towards developing countries, and also I mentioned that towards Asian countries. So which countries received this money in Asia, this investment in Asia? Number one, China. Okay. Along with China, Singapore, in spite of being a small country, still Singapore receives about, even last year, they got more than 50 billion capital, foreign direct investment. India is another country. In fact, before last year, Singapore got 92 billion, 2019. So they were getting around 80-90 billion dollars foreign investment annually. Another country which is very much attracted to foreign investment is India. Now they get 40-50 billion dollars a year. How much we get in Sri Lanka? Over the last 40 years, we hardly got even $1 billion any year. So we should ask why. Well, let me also explain why foreign investment is important. As I mentioned, Sri Lanka is a small country. We need a big leap forward, whereas our investments, our own savings, do not generate enough investment every year. They will do that because our private sector is very small and they can undertake a couple of projects. That is true. But if we are expecting a big leap forward, we need to have global capital. That's the reason why we have to depend on foreign investment as well. If it is the case, then we have the very simple question to ask, why people don't want to put their money in this country? And if you find the answers to this question, then actually we know what are the things that we need to address, the questions that we need to address to bridge this gap between tradable and non-tradable. In fact, by that time, I'm sure the construction industry will also start its booming period. Its booming period by that time, because it has to feed into the tradable sector as well. I hope I answered the question. Thank you.
Professor, I'm Salia. Can I just make a small query into what you say? Can the construction industry itself become a tradable category?
Well, I have seen, again, China is playing a major role there too, but all the materials that you use in construction industry, they are tradable. I think you understand that point. All the materials and parts and components.
That is true.
That is tradable because we import a lot of things and also we export a lot of things. And even if you want to import sand, metal and bricks and all these things, you can do that. So materials are tradable, but the construction industry itself is not yet tradable. But now they have fabricated buildings. Am I right?
Yes, prefabricated buildings.
Prefabricated, even sky-rise buildings. So I don't think still they are exporting, they are entering into international trade that much. But in the future, they will also come. So with technology development, this distinction may not, it's not a static, it's not fixed, it is changing and it's dynamic. So construction industry, at least some components, some part of it is still tradable.
One more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
If a company decides to go overseas and carry out construction, does that fall into that category of tradable?
No, because the reason is now this is coming under service sector, industry sector and service sector. Now, why service companies going abroad? Because under the World Trade Organization, there are a couple of categories where we do the service trade across the borders. Number one is using technology. So we can study abroad or we can get healthcare from abroad. We can do buying and selling abroad using our internet facilities, ICT technology. So that is one mode. Second mode, consumer crossing the border. So we go to India, Singapore, or somewhere for education, for health facilities. That is consumer crossing the border. That is another way of carrying out service trade. The supplier crossing the border. That is another way of doing that. And Mr. Sali, what you mentioned is coming under that category. And there is the fourth item, that is the most controversial and many people don't like that one. That is the movement of natural person. That is the movement of expertise. So in that sense, there may be engineers, there may be professors, there may be architects, lawyers, doctors, allowed to move across the borders, like within the European Union. They can go anywhere and they can do those, supply those professional services. That is another way of doing that. So under these four modes, service trade takes place. And then in that case, if a company is going abroad and doing construction business, that is coming under one of these modes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor. I think with what followed your lecture, I think you have given the full picture very clearly. Well, it's left for the policymakers and the administrators to see the reality of
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Professor, I have a small question to you.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
As an economist, we all know that our country is not investor-friendly country. So
the answer to that question.
Yeah, right. So what is the message? I mean, what are the things that as a country we should do? So just give us a simple answer.
Yeah.
Right. So we all are struggling about foreign reserves these days. So I fully understood that we have a small economy, and you very well explained about how Singapore is maintaining a large economy, being a small country. So in very simple language, just give us a very simple answer, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are not economists. We all are representing some other professions, architects, engineers, and lawyers, doctors, and all that. So just give us a small, very small, knowledge on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Herat. Very interesting question, because my answer is very simple. The answer can be very simple, but implementing that answer is not that simple. So that's the reason why it has not happened yet. I know that over the last 40 years, there have been many important areas. I would say they are pillars of an open economy. Open economy should be planted on very strong pillars, foundations. If I speak in the construction industry language, the foundation should be very strong. And without that foundation, open economy does not last. And if we forget that foundation, we keep blaming the open economy. And what is this foundation? There are a couple of things. Number one, rule of law. Rule of law. And we haven't touched that area over the last 40 years. We have rules, regulations, some of them are obviously outdated, and we don't have, we have not brought about any major reforms in this particular area, so that equality in front of law and law enforcement. These two areas, in those two areas, Sri Lanka is very weak, which is a fundamental requirement of an open economy. So you can compare that with other countries which are having the open economy, including Singapore. Second, the public sector. And we have introduced a lot of elements into public sector over the last so many years, but we haven't done any purposive reforms in the public sector. So when the private sector was to move fast, the public sector is still moving as the way that they used to move, and having a lot of procedures and red tapes. That is one important factor which hinders investment into this country. So I mentioned two things. I can also go on reporting a couple of other things, but actually the thing is that why they are not yet implemented. I can give you two simple answers to that. One simple answer is how many people, how many professionals, how many activists will start going against those implementation programs. So in this country, unlike in many other countries, you can't do things without the support, without public support. Number two, we also need that policy implementation mechanism established. And many investors, they complain about unpredictability of our policy. We have to show the direction. This is our direction. This country is moving forward and it will not change. That's why they believe in China. That's why they believe in Vietnam. They know that that system runs to the future. And in this country, overnight, taxes change, policies change. Not only that, ministers and secretaries also change. Things get upside down, and there is no predictability and consistency in our policies and regulations. Very important point. So I hope I gave you the answers why the investors are reluctant to put their money in this country.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. It's very clear to us now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I hope I can leave giving you, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
We have Dr. Rohan Karuna with us, I believe. Yes, he is there. At the moment, his mic is muted, but if anyone requests, there is one question in the chat box for Dr. Rohan. I think you can read it if you like. This is from engineer Dr. Tissa. I'll read the whole question. After that, anyone can take it on. Design and build is not good unless the client is capable and conversant with subject and design. And the client need to be very much used to quality control. Else, for the designs, the contractors do not put qualified design staff as they want to cut down the cost due to the competition and even with adequate funds. This is natural. However, it is fast with product, but quality, what matters, to be suffered rather. That's how it says. Dr. Rohan, would you like to respond to this?
Yes, Engineer Salia. Actually, I have very clearly explained this one. Yes, it is very true. But if you really hired, I have very clearly explained this. If the contractor hires a qualified architect, qualified engineers, qualified quantity service, and qualified
what you mean is
those. I also have joined some of these presentations. Some presentations are very, very, very good. With new ideas, new creative. Even the prices I have seen is not the normal contract form. The prices also 200 million engineering estimated contract. The design and build project they have quoted for about 170, 175 million. They're saving the cost as well as the quality is very good. But then again, if some contractors have not hired the qualified team and the design is, very bad, even the quality, as I think Dr. Nipe has mentioned, yes, I agree with you. It's
not me, by Dr. Lienage.
Dr. Lienage, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, Mr. Lienage. So this is the difference. I have joined in couple of presentations of design and build. I have very well noticed these things. If you have a good team, yes. If you have a bad team, if not qualified team, yes, it can go other way.
And there is an opinion expressed by Mr. Vivekanandan. There's a number of things, but basically last, streamline subcontracting system through SIDA. Establish a unit under SIDA to monitor material prices in Sri Lanka under stable condition. Prices should not be allowed to fluctuate to unproportionate level. It's a comment.
Yes,
Do you
it's
see
very
any way
true.
of
I have
implementing
it's very
this?
true. I have addressed this earlier. I have
No,
said
this
the same.
is a question by this is a comment made by Mr. Vivekanandan, I think. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I agreed, Mr. Vivekananda. 100% agreed. Yeah.
There's another message which just came in. I can read it out. This is from engineer Sarath Gamini. Introduce very effective price indices which are used by the international market. Is this a practical arrangement, Doctor?
In fact, why Engineer Sali, I asked, now SIDA index is not updated timely. Big problem. And contractors, either they have to imagine and escalate their price. And why not international? For example, ductile line. Now, if you go around and ask prices from Corrie Road, who will tell the correct price? And they cannot decide also.
Yeah.
So it's so pathetic. So I know, SIDA, there are some members from Contractors Association. That is one thing. And we all must, I am also from public sector below, but I cannot see, real justification for introducing the SIDA indexes. That's one. At the meantime, another comment, shall we introduce this escrow accounting system? Because now we pay advance, contractor use for some other works. Finally, end of the day, contractor also suffer and client also suffer.
Yeah.
That kind of one system should be evaluated. And see the conditions to be changed. My proposal. If we need to change, we have to change for the benefit of both parties. For example, now with good intention, now you have introduced SIDA and public finance. They introduce certain group of certain value, 10 million below C6. Certain C6 level contractors cannot do. They don't have technical capacity. Then we used to recall tenders. Genuinely, we must have a place to get the deviation. Now, it is very difficult to get the deviation. So contractors associations, and I know why they have introduced. And Dr. Karuna also explained about up to some extent iniquity, and it's more large scale contractors are taking all those things, that is there. But there are some practical difficulties in the public sector also. Engineer Salia, we must discuss with these things in OPA and with the Dr. Karuna, and we have to allow public sector to do the work also. Quality work also. That's my observation. Escrow system will be a better option. Think about that.
Yeah, I think Engineer Sarath Gamini could be a good addition to the construction sectoral committee of OPA. And in a lighter sense, I must say, but when he's there, nobody else will get the chance of talking. Sorry, don't get offended. There's a technical question, Dr. Rohan, from Engineer Jayantaranatunga, my mentor. What is the place in 3D printing in our construction industry, at least in the low-rise buildings? This is an area, technical area, which I don't know whether you are aware. If not,
Can you repeat the question again?
What is the place in 3D printing in our construction industry? It's been done globally, I know, at least in the low-rise buildings, he says. Are we in any way onto the 3D printing? I think this is a question more answered by architects than Dr. Rohan, I believe.
I think Rohan can answer this better.
If Rohan can answer this, it might help.
Yeah, actually, there was a place. I can't remember it exactly. I can try and find the answer for. Right. I can't remember exactly.
So to Engineer Jayanta, I think we need, it's a good area to look at, but we need
Yeah,
time to
yeah.
go
Yeah.
into this.
We have that facility in Sri Lanka.
Mm.
Then there is a question raised, put by QS Nishant Vikramasinghe. Huh? To everyone it says, minimize the dispute introduced DNB procurement method and internationally 95% accepted process, but in Sri Lanka, no proper contractors going to do so, especially specialty contractors. So grading system itself introduced different marking system for DNB projects. I think this is more of a quantity surveying related terminology. If Professor Chitra Vidikar is online, she may be able
Yeah,
to
she
answer.
may be able to answer.
She may be
Yeah.
able to express the opinion.
Mm.
Professor Chitra, are you on?
I also have a question. When you get, let me know when I can ask. Hello.
Yeah, you can go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Verbal questions allowed, please.
Yeah. I'm Karuratna, YR Karuratna, OPA. My question is, it was mentioned that due to escalating price due to various factors especially during the past year or so, and also the government restricting imports of items that are required to complete the construction work, and then there is no way that they can complete the project. So the construction companies are in serious trouble under these circumstances. So can you, what is the solution you can suggest to this problem?
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have. Can you hear me? Yeah, we have had a couple of meetings even with the HE, and we have explained this situation. It's very true that some tiles are not available, like electronic items are not available, electrical fittings are not available, the bathroom fittings we have lacked. Though the Mr. Dhammika promised us, okay, we will give you any amount, but it is not there. So the contractors are in great trouble without material, and even to import. Now they have to open up 180-day LCs. So to open up 180-day LCs is getting down this material will delay your project a lot. So we are in real complicated situation with this. I 100% agree with Mr. Karuna on this.
Professor has come now. Architect Kalwarachi.
Yeah, Professor has come.
Yeah. Can I request Nishanta to raise your question? Because it was a question by Nishanta on the chat box, which we were unable to answer.
You can read it out, Sali, for Professor. Very clear.
Yeah, but only thing is, I don't understand exactly what it is there. What is there? But I'll read what is there. What it says is minimize the dispute introduced DNB procurement method. And internationally, 95% accepted process. But in Sri Lanka, no proper contractors are going to do so, especially contractors. So grading system itself introduced different marking system for DNB projects. What is, I'm sorry, my knowledge is limited. What is DNB project?
Design and build.
Design and build. Sorry. Design and build. We call it DAB, right? Okay.
Professor, your mic. Professor, your mic is mute.
Wait,
Okay, all right. Charlie, I think what Nishanta is really asking is, what are the processes that can be used in dispute resolution to minimize? Now, for example, not only design and build, anything. So really speaking, first thing is negotiation. No, then negotiation, then mediation, then adjudication, then arbitration, like that. So I think what Nishanta is saying is at least to introduce that these things are done first before you go to even adjudication or arbitration. I think that's what he's trying to say. Otherwise, I think what he's saying is that these methodologies are not used in the construction industry to mitigate disputes in the industry, even in DNB projects. I think this is what he's asking.
I think you are right. Now
Yeah.
I see the when
Yeah.
some misspelled words.
Yeah.
Hey, Professor, can I, now that you have come on the scene, can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
Particularly for design and
so-
build concepts.
Yeah.
This NEC method of procurement has been proven to be a lot more effective than the FIDIC
Yeah.
method. What is your
Yeah,
opinion
I
on that?
think
And why is NEC not being brought into Sri Lanka in such?
the thing is this, I think everyone is trying to use something that is very suitable, like the JCT or NEC from UK. Yeah, but the thing is, nobody has really recommended that to CEDA. I think all the institutions are thinking of recommending that CEDA should use either JCT or NEC, because they are very well documentation that can be very well suited to Sri Lanka. FIDIC is an international document which is much more for an engineering contract than a building contract. You see, building contract is not, the CEDA, FIDIC is not very suitable for building contracts, but for engineering contracts like bridges and whatever roads and things like that, maybe FIDIC is reasonable. So I think we are asking CEDA to at least develop a nest of documents, or use something that is tested and time tested and use it in Sri Lanka. But I don't know what will happen there. I think all the institutions must get together, because now in UK and all, it's a joint contracts tribunal, that is architects, engineers, quantity surveyors. When you say joint contract tribunal, it is not a legal thing.
The word tribunal is a bit misleading.
Yeah, but people get scared when you say tribunal. Then that, I think that's what people had got scared about. Really, it is architects, engineers, conservators, contractors, everybody getting together and getting this document done, so that everything is properly laid out, so that no consultant needs
Management contracting.
So no need to change it. But what is, I understand what Dr. Rohan was saying. We consultants sometimes tend to change it, right? But the thing is, if we all get together and get this contract done properly, then because whatever it is, a contract is a partnership between people, right? So I think that is very important, where we all get together and do a contract which is used by everybody, rather than just few people. And I also think that, Rohan, you enriching the subcontracting, I think is very important. I think there is a financial circular that I think CEDA has now done, to say that 15% of the subcontracting from the main contractors must go to subcontractors, and that consultants also should look into subcontracting if by chance subcontractors complain about their payments. I think these are there, but I don't know whether they are implemented properly. You see, that is what has happened. Otherwise, the proper circulars have been done. I know CEDA with all of us did the circular on subcontracting, saying that, but they have not been properly implemented. There is a financial circular about subcontracting, but those things haven't yet been, it hasn't gone into the industry properly. You know, I think that is the reason why these things are still behind in terms of the Sri Lankan construction industry. And also, I do agree with you on the design and build. You must have a proper qualified team to do the design and build. If they do this, none of the consultants will grumble, because then you take an architectural firm, you take a quantity surveying firm, and also the engineering firm to do with the contractor. So I think that should be propagated rather than anything else. One thing, of course, you were talking about wrong BOQs and things like that. Well, the problem in that is I'm on behalf of the QSs. It's not because of that. The engineering estimates are done long time ago. Okay, the budgets are done long time ago. So by the time the budget gets approved and becomes fruition to a project, that budget is not really usable because it has been done 2 years ago or 3 years ago or something like. So I think you all have to take that with the government. Yeah, I knew that at one time the Ministry of Finance is going to have a committee where all these budgets would be looked at and updated before it went. So I think that kind of thing you'll have to push from the finance ministry, because the budgets are done by the procurement departments long time ago. By the time the treasury approves the money and when it comes, the budget is not because the material has gone up, the labor has gone up, everything has gone up, and that budget is not really reflection of the project. So I think those are some of the things I think the industry, OPA, everybody should look into, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Professor. We are coming to the end of the time allocation, but there is one comment which it doesn't need an answer, but I'll read. This is from important person. Important means person who's directly involved in the construction industry, Lalit Ratnayaka. What he says is OPA may advise GOSL on the best proportion or ratio for local economic growth in terms of works and services distribution to GOSL, large private enterprises, SMEs, etc. Currently in construction industry, consultants and SMEs have smallest share of about 12 to 20%. SME is mainly on one-sided, unprotected subcontracts. Large share by foreigners, government or semi-government and big companies is so. Right. I think we have to agree to that almost. Dr. Karunaratne, I think.
Yes, exactly. We really agree with him. Also, Professor, the wrong BOQs I have mentioned you, we have gone through those BOQs and we understood those are being done not by the quantity surveyors. Some technical officers who are working in various departments have done some below quantities which they don't understand about the work. So it's completely wrong what we got to do at the site. So those kind of problems are also there with some departments.
Okay, we have come to the end of our time allocation. It's 7:58 now and we are supposed to wind up at 8 o'clock. So to thank you, while thanking everyone for active participation in the discussion, for a formal vote of thanks, I will invite the Secretary of the OPA, Attorney at Law, Ruchira Gunasekar. Over to you, Ruchira.
Thank you, Engineer Sali Kaluarachi. Eminent panelists, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening to all of you. On behalf of the Organization of Professional Associations of Sri Lanka, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar on construction industry's present challenges and way forward. First and foremost, our sincere thanks to the eminent panelists, Professor Ceylon Institute of Builders for accepting our invitation and being here despite their very busy schedules. And they are no strangers to the OPA. Thank you, sirs, for sharing your valuable knowledge and insights with us. I'm sure all of our the participants really they were enlightened with their knowledge. We appreciate the efforts of architect Rohan Karuna, President-elect of Sri Lanka Institute of Architects, Vice President, and the Chairman of the Construction Industry Sector Committee of the OPA in initiating this discussion. I think I'm sure he wanted to have this event a few months ago, but still due to, as explained by Engineer Sali Kaluarachi, due to the present situation, we had to postpone, but we are very thankful to him still. His efforts really and the guidance in making this webinar made a reality and a success. We are equally grateful for the contribution of the members of the Construction Industry Sector Committee of the OPA in making this program a reality. We thank Engineer Salia Kaluarachi, one of the senior members of the General Forum of the OPA, and a very valuable member of the Construction Industry Sector Committee of the OPA for his input as a moderator this evening. And the contribution, in fact, he made at committee meetings in organizing this interactive session today. I would like to thank the President, Engineer Shanta Sanrat, President-elect, Treasurer, Office Bearers, past Presidents, Chairman and Chairperson of the Standing Committees, members of the Executive Council and the General Forum for their advice and support in organizing this webinar today. Heartfelt thanks to our audience for their very active participation. I once again appreciate the hard work of the OPA Secretariat staff for providing excellent technical support for this webinar. So I wish to extend my gratitude to all others who supported us in numerous ways in organizing this webinar today. I thank you all once again, and good night.
Thank you, Ruchira, for that comprehensive and sweet vote of thanks. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
We will wind up this session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Salia.